say the expert bass fisher. And I can go ahead and tell you right now, that is part of my talk here in a minute. That is not the case. So I want to thank you all for coming. This is such an awesome opportunity to stand in front of you all to be able to talk fishing, be able to talk, Jesus, be able to talk everything, fellowship. And I just want to tell y'all, I appreciate you. Like you said, the COVID pandemic, kind of hurt us pretty bad. I stepped away, I moved over. We didn't even lie. I have a very booming voice, so I apologize about that. But yeah, talk about expert fishing. I'm talking to some of y'all here, and before this thing ever started, one of the things I heard was professional fisherman. And I'll go ahead and tell you, I don't believe that I'm a professional fisherman. Yes, I'm wearing a jersey with logos on it. I've got some of the greatest sponsors, some of the greatest supporters out there, but I'm not a professional fisherman. I consider myself a successful hobbyist. That's about it. And semi-successful hobbyist. But I kind of anticipate that. So we're going to start this thing out on a somber note. Whenever I thought about the idea of being a professional fisherman, I contacted a couple of true professional fishermen buddies of mine. And I asked them, what constitutes being a professional? And surprisingly, every one of them said the same thing. It was, you need to talk to your tax lady. For whatever reason. And nobody said fishermen are dumb. Maybe just a bit ignorant at times, but not dumb. Well, luckily, my tax lady is also a supporter and sponsor of mine, so I called her up and I said, Amanda, you need to know what constitutes being a professional fisherman. She said, well, Jared, altogether, that's a gray area, but ultimately, if you were profitable, then you can be considered a professional. I said, oh, cool. Well, you know my taxes, what does that make me? She said, well, you remember that gray area I was talking about? Now, much like beauty, profitability is in the eye of the beholder. It really is. And I think that I'm one of the most profitable people on the face of the planet. I do. I'm excited to do what I do. I'm excited to get out there and fish. And truthfully, profitability to me extends way beyond money. Think about the friends that I made whenever I started fishing. And I've got friends right now that would drop everything that they had to drive 2 hours to bring me a four-way to change the tire. And I say that because it happened. Okay? I talk about opportunities and experiences. Y'all, I'm here in front of y'all right now. This is such a cool deal. I'm not making a dime on this. I'm not talking about profit where money's concerned, but I'm just excited to be here. I got a man sitting at my table right now. I had one of the coolest experiences in the world several years back. I got to bring a load of kids fishing on Lake Dardanelle, and I watched two of them catch their very first fish ever. I mean, it was so neat. I got the opportunity, whenever I started fishing again back in 2018, to fish in the tanks at Bass Pro. Yeah. Legally. Yeah, that was a cool experience. Now, one thing that taught me is there's a fine line out there between excitement and disappointment. So I'll go ahead and explain this. Whenever you're fishing at the tank at Bass Pro, you're standing up on a platform. You're looking down at the big aquarium. And whenever you're up there, the irrigator ripple and the bubbles, yes. Whatever that big was. But when you got all the ripples, you got all the bubbles, and you can't see what's down there. So I'm teaching people at a Bass Pro workshop how to throw a Ned rig. Okay? Don't make fun of it. Now, Ned rig is a little bitty bait that's about this big, and whenever I use the word Ned rig around fishermen, I always get that weird look, like, really, you throw something that small? But yeah, I do. I love it. So I'm up there, and I'm pitching. That thing starts falling. I'm talking to these people about how to work it, and all of a sudden I feel a thump. Now, from where I'm at, I look down, and all of a sudden, everybody down there, all 50, 100 people, their eyes got this big around. And it was at that moment I knew that nobody would ever be able to take this away from me. I can say that I had a 12-pound, 2-ounce bass on a Ned rig, about a little baby about that big. Now, I told you there's a fine line between excitement and disappointment. The disappointing thing is whenever you fish at Bass Pro, you don't get to use a hook. Fine line, paper thin right there. But no, I mean, from a, profitability standpoint, those are some of the coolest things. But monetarily speaking, truthfully, you got to draw your line in the sand. What do you want to be? Do you want to be profitable over registration? Do you want to be profitable over fuel, insurance, all that? Me, I'm a straightforward, intangible kind of guy. I want to know what the registrations are, stuff that I know I have to pay, and if I make money above that, I consider myself profitable. And since I got back into this in 2018, I can safely say that at best I'm breaking. But that doesn't bother me because it's brought me so many more profitable experiences, like, again, talking to you all here tonight. Now, I think I could go further. I really do. But there's one body of water out there that stands in my way. And I despise to use the word hate, but I have a love or hate relationship with this body of water because whenever I fish it, I either catch a bunch of fish weighing a nice sack of tournament, or I'm in the lower third, or the lower fourth, lower eighth for that matter. I've struggled with this place. You may have heard of it. Lake Dardanelle? You heard of it. You fished there, huh? Man, you'd think that I'd do better at fishing that lake, but I'm telling you, I just struggle. It's either feast or famine on that lake for me. And you'd think that I would do better at that body of water because I grew up fishing the Arkansas River out of Pine Bluff. So I fished Redfield, Pine Bluff, True Lock, and Dumas. Those are the pools that I typically fish. And for those of y'all that want to know the answer to the question, yes, the bass that you catch in the Redfield pool below Jefferson NCTR have that weird yellow tint that the bass you catch below Russellville Nuclear Plant. They have the same sheen. I kind of think there's something in the water. Might be. I say that I've been eating those bass all of my life, and although I got 8 toes and 1 foot, I'm doing really well for myself. I don't have 8 toes and 1 foot, maybe combined, but not. Oh my goodness! No, that was kind of where I got my start out there on the White River or on the Arkansas River. But I actually cut my teeth fishing at the White River Refuge. How many of y'all are familiar with the White River Refuge? Love it, love it. So, for those of y'all that are unfamiliar with the White River Refuge, it is a floodplain off of the White River down in southeast Arkansas, and is naturally stopped by the White River. So it's got lakes, tributaries, ponds, streams. I got some in my eyes, so y'all just bear with me here. I'm not crying or anything. But it's got lake, ponds, streams, tributaries, everything, and it's naturally stocked by the river whenever it floods. Okay? If you don't know where it's at, it stretches from St. Charles, Arkansas, down to a little town called Ethel. Now, if you go and Google Ethel, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, make sure that you put the word Arkansas in behind Ethel. Because if you just Google Ethel, you're going to get redirected to a Ray Stevens song. Yeah, the older generation. Well, I'll tell you, the older generation just laughed there, but the younger generation like, what in the world? And like I said, everybody else like, boogie boogie. Good stuff. Y'all look that up later. Younger generation, y'all look that up. I had some of the greatest opportunities in the White River fishing. I grew up fishing for food. We didn't fish for five, we fished for nice fishing. And it taught me a lot of valuable lessons fishing on that body of water. Truthfully, it taught me, lessons I'll never, ever forget. Sort of like, if you're going to catch fish and you're going to add to that ice chest, then you have to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to adapt. Let me tell you a prime example. I grew up fishing in a family of four. It was my dad, my mom, my brother, and me. And we were all in a 1983 bass cracker. Small boat, 15 foot. Can you imagine 4 rods whipping 15 foot? There's a lot of people got hooked in that dang boat. They always had me at the very end for some reason, so I got good at casting sidearm. I was real good at that. But, you think about adapting. If we're bass fishing, my dad's at the front of the boat, he was a brush hog man, so he would throw a zoom brush hog. My mom behind him, she was a worm lady. Loved throwing the zoom worms. She would fish the worm out. My brother was a crankbait man, so he'd probably be throwing that RP350 crankbait. And then you got me back there, and I'm like, well, if I want to catch it, I got 2 choices. I can put on a cork and a cricket, or I can pick up something different. And this is what I'm going to tell y'all. I get this question every time I do a program like this. The one bait that I can tell you right now that if you want to catch fish on from now until the end of time is go to Walmart and get you a Strike King spinner bait, white, that's a little bitty 1/8 ounce with a silver blade, and you can throw it anywhere, anytime, and you're going to catch fish. I promise. That's what I threw. I didn't have a lot of fish in the live well because, every tree had a lot of baits bouncing off of them, but I did have fish that live. The other thing that I learned at a very early age is a skill that is very overlooked is if you learn how to get unhung at an early age, you keep the captain of the boat happy. And it makes for a much more pleasurable experience. Luckily, whenever I started fishing, my dad set me down on a 5-gallon bucket. He gave me the old school Zepco. And I'm not talking about the cute little silver and black ones that people use nowadays. I'm talking about that good old cream colored one with the brown button. And it doesn't take long to figure out if you put a mason jar ring on the end of a Zepco, you can throw that thing here at Russellville. And you can sling them forever. I got bored with it. So I was sitting back there at 4 years old, 3 years old, whatever, and I'm sitting there looking up going, let's try something different. And I was throwing up in the tree. There are pictures of me out there on a bucket yanking stuff out of a tree. It really was. Didn't think that back then, but now I look at it and say it was a skill that I'm sure glad that I adapted. I feel sorry for that tree, though. You know, we moved away from there in about 2004, and whoever bought that thing, I'm sure that at one point in time, the mason jar lids were falling, or the rings were falling out of the tree as the branches started coming off. People that bought that house probably thought, well, that's a sign from God. I need to start canning tomatoes. But yeah, that's how I learned. That's how I learned. Now, tournament fishing is a totally different thing. You know, it's a passion, it's an obsession. It's, you know, it's taboo to say it, but it's kind of an addiction. It really is. And I guess my addiction came at an early age as well. So I don't remember much about the first tournament I fished, but I remember certain things about it. Back where I grew up in Pine Bluff, there was a tournament out there. It was a memorial tournament for a guy named Robert Mack. He passed away. I don't know if anybody knows him or not, but he passed away, and they started holding a memorial tournament in his honor. Well, my dad asked me to fish it whenever I was a really young kid. I was probably 5 or 6. I don't really remember, to be honest. I think there's a picture somewhere out there of me running around with no shirt on and a bass on a stringer. I think that's the only bass we caught out of that tournament. However, what I remember about this tournament is after we got in, Dad loaded the boat, and we're watching people bring all of these fish up. And I'm talking sacks of fish. I'm watching it all and going, how do they do that? I want to do that. I want to catch big sacks of fish. And they were weighing them, you know, big sacks, big sacks, big sacks. And then all of a sudden it quit. You know, nobody else. They said, okay, if that's the case, we're going to give out the prizes. Okay, what's the prizes? And all of a sudden the TD, the tournament director, pulls out cash out of his pocket. And he starts handing it to these people that won. Wait a minute. I'm 6 years old, 5 years old. You can make money doing this? Hold on, I'm all in. I am all in. Well, I watched all that go on, and then, after they said and done, they said, we're going to do door prizes. Now, I was 5 or 6, so I was looking for knobs and hinges. You know, I didn't know what the door prize was. But all of a sudden, I looked over, and there's a pile of stuff, much like we had back here. I was the youngest out there, so they asked me to come draw the little, it was old poker chips at the time. They write your number on them for a boat draw, and you pick them out. So I was up there, and I was looking at these prizes. And I'm talking some of the good old 1980s door prizes. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah, y'all do. It was a Q-beam, a couple of extension cords, a pack of Titleist golf balls for some reason. Somebody would always bring that pen and pencil set that matched for some reason. It looked like a spray painted gold. And you always had that one guy that would bring the Plano tackle box that you said was new, but as soon as you open it up, there's H&H spinnerbait stuck to it and some burnt worm plastic. You know, you get I call it the drug baggies full of worms. You know, they all would take a handful of them and just stick them in the Ziploc baggies, roll it, hand them out at those things. You know, they had the little glass things, the Uncle Josh's pork rinds. Didn't have a label on them, but you knew they were Uncle Josh's because they had a green lid. That's the only way you knew. And then there was always this one guy that had the door prizes there, and I don't know who he was, but he was at every single tournament. The guy that had the connection to them old 38-quart Coleman Gatorade ice chests. Them great ones. Y'all know what I'm talking about? How many of y'all still got some of those? Yeah, you can vouch for them. They're really good. In fact, it's so good that if you catch a mess of fish, put them in there and put 2 bags of ice on them, by the time you get home, the fish will be resuscitated and swimming laps in that thing. Those of y'all that never saw this, there was a phenomenon with these ice chests too. They had something go on that even Ripley's couldn't figure out. If you took these ice chests and you left them out in the rain, then magically the lid would fill up with water. And it doesn't matter how you sit on it, squeeze it, shake it, or anything. You drill holes in the bottom of it. You're not getting the water out of that thing. And everybody that's laughing knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's some amazing ice chests. But anyhow, I was a kid. I was drawing these poker chips. I was snatching them out of the hat. And of course, ice chests come around. I remember us being boat number 13, lucky 13. I remember pulling out ice chests, boat number 1, 2, 12. Woohoo, missed that. Thank you. Pull another one, number 2. In a pencil set and everything. All the door prizes gone. And it hit me. We hadn't gotten anything. Man, that stinks. Well, all of a sudden, the tournament director pulls an envelope out of his pocket. He says, all right, grand prize drawing time. $200. And I thought in 1980s, $200. The equivalent to about $1,000 nowadays. Yeah, real $200. So, didn't know anything about it. I reach in, shake it up, and I pull it out. Lo and behold, I pulled our number. Lucky number 13. And of course, I got ribbed by all the old men there. Oh, this Steve, he pulled his own number. But at the same time, there it was, number 13. Handed it to the TD, he gave me the envelope. I took it, handed it to my dad. It was great. I didn't know what was in there. At $200. Woo, 6 years old. I didn't know what that meant. We get on the road going home, and all of a sudden my dad pulls this thing out. I'm sitting in the back of his crew cab, really like a double cab truck. So I'm sitting sideways, and he pulls this envelope out, pulls it open, pulls out a crisp $100 bill straight from the bank, and he hands it to me. Y'all, I was 6 years old with a $100 bill. I've never seen one before. I was Donald Trump. I mean, you could have told me nothing. But I was sitting there looking at this, and I was like, wait a minute. I made money, but I didn't weigh in any fish. We didn't do good. That's whenever I learned one of the most important lessons about fishing, and that was, you don't always have to be good. Just look. Oh man, no, that was a great time, but that's kind of where my addiction, my fuel for this passion came from. And fast forward all the way up until the time that I was in college. I fished, competitively all the way until then. And in 2004, I was fishing the tournament trail, finished it up, and that particular year, my dad and mom actually got transferred from Pine Bluff, Arkansas to Greensboro, North Carolina. So the boat that I was using all the way up in high school and through college with my dad was a 389 SC Javelin with a 175 two-stroke Johnson. Motor as loud as it was fast. Smoked it too. But that boat was gone, so they gifted me back that 1983 tractor. At the time, it was devastating to me. I hated it. I'd just gotten in a groove. Loved tournament fishing. I was a competitor. I was holding some success. I was really excited. But then all of a sudden, I'm back in that tractor with a trolling motor, and that's it. That's it. Hindsight being what it is, the Lord worked in mysterious ways, because that's where I was able to hone in a lot of my fishing skills. We went back to fishing for food again, and I was older. I was more mature. I kind of understood things. So I was able to test out different strategies, test out different lines, different reel types, different bait types, different colors. And I promise you that from Little Rock South and east and west border of Arkansas, there's not many bodies of water that 83 tractor ain't been in. And I can safely say I'm proud, beyond reason, that boat cannot talk. Because there's not enough duct tape in the world to cover up what it can say about me. But that's what I did. That was 2004, they left. And 2000, let's see here, I'm just kind of think on this a minute. So in 2008, I started my job with Extension. And then in 2010, as luck would have it, met a young lady, and for some reason she thought I was cute. So funny, I don't know why, but started dating this lady. 2012 rolled around, and me and her got married. A beautiful wife sitting out here in the front. In 2014, we welcomed the birth and welcomed our son to this world, our first child, Jake. Things here is a 2-year pattern, right? 2008, 10, 12, 14. So in 2016, she tells me, she said, Jared, I think we need to buy a boat big enough that we can all three go fishing, we can do stuff, all this. I said, I'll do it, but only on one occasion. I need your support because I want to get back in the tournament. She said, you got it. I don't think she realized what it was all about. I really don't. But 2016. So this was in the spring. Start fishing. I start fishing some afternoon trails, having a really good time, finding a little bit of limited success. And then all of a sudden, late 2016 rolls around, and we get news that we're going to have to get out of that 2-year pattern because we found out that my wife was pregnant with our twin daughters. 2017, they come around. So that's whenever I learned that God gives you 2 hands for a reason. And I promise you, my hands are full with them. And will be for a while. They're 5. But in 2017, I also started the bass club down in Hampton, Arkansas. It's called the Hogskin Bass Club. I wanted to start something that I could be proud of, that was based off of my vision. And so I started. And I fished all the way through 2017, even after the birth of our daughters. And my wife knew that it was very important. So she kept pushing. Whenever I say we need to stay back, I need to stay with you. No, you need to go practice. You need to go do this. Fish that tournament. It's okay. We had a good support system with her parents and my parents came in and really looked after the kids. So I finished that year. At the end of the year, I finished 3rd place annual of the year. I was about 30, 40 feet. It was great for me. I thought I was on top of the world there too, but I was angry because I hadn't quite made it to 1st. That's what I wanted. So I told my wife, I said, I'd like to finish Hogskin again next year. I'm going for 1st. And then she brings me out to the side right after our banquet, and she said, Jared, what's the ultimate goal? What's the ultimate goal here? If you're going to fish competitively, what do you want? Well, I'd love to make it a job. I'd love to be professional. I want to provide for you and the family. She goes, well, how are you going to do that just fishing low-key tournaments like that? You know, that's a good question. She goes, why don't you go something bigger? So I will, but only with your support. She says, you got it. So, 2018 rolls around, back on that 2-year cycle now. 2018, I joined BFL circuit, started fishing that. That was in my budget. It's a good trail still here in Arkansas. If anybody's interested in competing, that is a great trail to get into. Fish a lot of central lakes, including Lake Dardanelle. So, I mean, you'll be right here in your backyard. But 2018 come around. And so I'm putting forth the hammer, I'm practicing, I'm living fishing, I'm breathing fishing, watching YouTube, talking on the phone to my buddies that have been to these lakes, because we fished 5 lakes that year, 5 different lakes, and I'd only been to one of them. So that means that 4 of them I'd never even seen, never been on. Some of them I never even knew that you could put a boat in. But I'm out there trying. I fished all year long, and I did not cash a check on the BFL circuit in 2018. That was my one goal. I said, I want to cash a check. In the meantime, I had fished hogskin, put in the time to fish that as well, and ended up getting first place, second of the year. So I knocked one of my items off my bucket list. Now, what I was unaware of at the time was this is about the time that life was really happening in front of my eyes, and I didn't realize it. I didn't. Things was happening so fast, and I had my mind so focused on fishing that life was happening around us. You know, I'll spare you the story, but we went into the end of 2018. I made the regional event for BFL. My one goal for that year was to cash a check on the BFL circuit, and I made the regional. Went up there and I fished hard and heavy at Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. Again, I'll spare you the story. We can talk about it later, but I ended up 9th place overall at that tournament. I was about 175, 180 boats. Ended up cashing a pretty substantial check. And again, I was on top of the world. Got home from that tournament, sat down, and I really got into studying for the next year. Like I said, YouTube, Google Earth, looking at phones, calling people, texting people. All the while, what I was doing was fishing for myself, and I was starting neglecting my family. I did. I started turning my back on my family because my fishing, my passion, my addiction was way too serious. It was. And it's embarrassing to talk about now, but at the very end of 2018, my wife and I had a recollection, and not to say recollection, that's a terrible word, but we had an issue come up, and whenever we did, it put our marriage together. It did, and that's part of it. It was. Luckily, by the grace of God, we stepped back and we put God back into our marriage. That was the main thing. We put God first. And it occurred to me at this point in time that I didn't need to fish for myself. I need to fish for God. I really did. I need to fish for God. So we're sitting there after all this is over and done with. We pull back, we reevaluate. And in January, I'm sitting there talking to my family, fishing with my kids, hanging out. And all of a sudden, my wife comes up to me. She says, Jared, what are you fishing this year? I said, I'm not fishing anything. I'm not. I see what it did to our family the one year that I was out, and I'm not going to do that anymore. She said, no, you're not. She said, you have put in too much time, too much effort, spent too much money, made too many good contacts, you're sponsored now. You've got everything doing this for you, and you're paving the way for our children in the future. With that said, my son is a youth Bass Nation angler now. He's 8 years old. But at that time, she laid that out. She goes, you need to get back in it. So I'll tell you what, I'll do it on one condition, that I have your undying support. Without missing a beat, she said, you got it. I started fishing BFL and stepped out a little bit and fished a few bigger things in 2019. And whenever I did, my wife started doing something for me that was so amazing and so cool. Before every tournament, she would give me the boat. She would. The night before the tournament, we would be sitting in a hotel or at the house. Even if I wasn't at home, she would call me and give me the boat over the phone. It was awesome. Fast forward to March 2019, and we're fishing Lake Dardanelle. Yay. Yeah. So the devotional she gave me that night before was a story about Jesus picking his first disciples. Now, for those of y'all that don't know the story, you can look up, I know there's shirts around here. The lady that was just sitting right there had it on the back of her. But Matthew 4:19, says, come with me and I'll make you fishers of men. The book of Luke outlines the story of Jesus picking his disciples. Actually outlines his whole life and his ministry, but picked out, he picked out his disciples. For those of y'all that don't know, it was Simon, who is now called Peter, and his brother Andrew. And what he did, he said, come with me, I'll make you fishers of men. Whenever he did that, they said, who are you? Why are you? Prove that you are who you say you are. He said, okay, let's go out in the boat. They were commercial fishermen. They had a bad day that day. Had a bad run. Wasn't catching any fish. They brought him out. He said, what'd y'all do? Said, we threw our nets to the left side of the boat. He goes, well, that's easy. Go to the right side. Just that simple. Yeah. Makes all the sense in the world, right? They reeled in. They said, okay, whatever, Jesus, let's go. Threw the net over. Whenever it sunk, they caught in one of the biggest bounties they ever had. At that point, they left, and they went and followed Jesus in his ministry. So in a fit of humor, my wife tells me at the very end of the devotion, she says, you know, if you are at the lake tomorrow and you run into a hitch, you know, if you get spun out, I want you to stop and pray, and then turn around and fish out the right side of your boat. That sounds easy enough, sure. You know, I mean, what happens if the right side of the boat's out in the middle? But, you know, funny enough, this is our testimony here, for real. Can't make this up. So I'm in a 175 tractor with a 75 Ford Spark on the back of it, where I can go at the speed of smell. I mean, I'm rocking and rolling down that river, right? So I'm late blast off, and I go upriver, come way up here close to Clarksville, get my backwater, and of course, I'm running 32 miles an hour. So everybody that's running 75, they need to this area. I'll pull in, and there's boats everywhere where I'm at. So I look over, and there's this little stretch. Never fished it before. I was like, we're going to go there. We're already here. So I went into this little stretch. In my mind, I had bad practices, so I said my baseline, I want to be 10 pounds total for the tournament, so I can, you know, keep point standings. I wanted to make the regional. So we start fishing down the stretch, and all of a sudden, I'm throwing a square to a crankbait. And all of a sudden, boom, catch a fish, 3.5 pounds. Okay, good start. You know, if I'm going for 10 pounds, I'm almost halfway there. Start fishing a little bit longer, and then the worst thing that any fisherman that's ever fished a tournament had happen, I'm reeling the bait in, and as I'm picking it up, I have the fish hit it, as I'm lifting the bait out of the water. And whenever that happens, you have two choices. You can hit your button and hope and pray the fish gets it, or you can yank and pull and hope that it comes out with it. Well, what I did is the second option. I did the yank and pull. And whenever I did, a 5-pound bass comes out of the water and hits the gunnel. Half of it's in the boat, half of it's out of the boat. And which way do you think it went? Back. It did. I'm spun out at this point, angry. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking, that's 5 pounds. 5 plus 3.5, that's, you know, 8.5 pounds. I want to be 10. I'll be with one more keeper. Right there, bang. So I fish down just a little bit. And it hits me. He's like, hold on. My wife said to pray. And then turn around and fish out the right side. Fish on the left side of the boat. Seriously. So I take a second, say a little silent prayer, and I turn the boat around. Tell him, I said, what are you doing? I said, we're going back down this stretch. I said, I got to fish out the right side of the boat. Why? That's interesting. Why? And I told the story. Made it just about the length of this building here, which is about where I missed the 5-pounder, and no joke, I'm sitting there reeling that square bill through and boom. Set the hook. And I say, get the net, it's a good one. Fish fights, comes around, comes up at the boat, turns sideways, partner nets it. Whenever you do, put it in, it's a 5-pound. It's amazing how Jesus works. Amazing how God works. It is. But that actually did happen. Finished that tournament out, I weighed in a little over 14 pounds. My baseline was 10, and I cashed my very first check in a regular season DFL tournament right here going on. It's only really good, but you know, it's amazing what Jesus will do. It is. You know, when I sit there and I think about all the good things that Jesus, you know, God has done for me, I think about all the things that God has done for, you know, the fishing community, and I really think that if it wouldn't have been for fishing and the problems that I had started in my own home, that I don't know that I'd ever been back today. That was in 2018, and here I am standing before you all. You know, no preacher, but I'm standing for you. So I'll wrap this up kind of quick here. You know, something that I thought about on the way up is, you know, 2 of Jesus' disciples were fishermen, and actually several of them were. But why does Jesus like the fishermen? Why? Remember I told you earlier, we're not dumb, but we're a little ignorant. I think that has something to do with it. But I think it's more because of our persistence. And if you don't believe me, we have our first DFL event at Lake Ouachita here in just a couple of weeks. And if you don't believe persistence, it's going to snow or rain or ice. Well, there's going to be 29-mile-an-hour north wind. There's going to be high sun, no clouds. It's going to be terrible fishing conditions. Might even be ice on the ramp. There's going to be 150 boats in that thing, I can guarantee you. We're ignorant. We're ignorant. But that's the reason I think the Jesus liked the fishermen, because they were persistent as well. Now they fished commercially. So they would drop the nets and they would pull the fish in. You know, think about it from our standpoint. You know, whenever I was fishing for food, I throw that little spinner bait. And if I was bass fishing and I caught a 4-pound flathead, do you think I was throwing it back? Heck no, it was going in that Gatorade ice chest and swimming a couple laps. Bring him home. But I think that's exactly the reason that Jesus loved the fishermen. I also used the net as a metaphorical tense, or metaphorical, analogy. We start thinking here about what the net is. Whenever you drop the net, there's no telling what you would catch. No telling. They might have a grannel in there, might have gar, whatever, but they kept everything, they utilized everything. And I truthfully believe that God's word is the net. Matthew 4:19 says, "Come with me and I'll make you fishers of men." Every single one of you in here is equipped with God's word, that net. And it all depends on how you throw it out as to what you catch. So if y'all don't get anything else from this talk tonight, I just urge you, please, cast your net. So I thank you all for this opportunity. I'll stick around all night long. If y'all don't have the opportunity to talk to me, I want to shake everybody's hand, give your testimony, talk fishing, talk hunting, whatever. Love it. Love visiting with everybody. But if I don't get the opportunity to talk to you, you can always look us up on our social medias, and we answer it, me and my wife. So you're not getting some person out of China sending you messages. It's literally us. Jarrett Rushing on Facebook, Jarrett Rushing Fishing on Instagram, and then we have a YouTube channel, Jarrett Rushing Fishing. Do me a favor, if you're not already a subscriber, go subscribe to that, because that helps us out. We're able to put out more videos. And if you want to follow us this year, we are going to be on YouTube. We're going to be documenting just about everything that we do, and that includes a trip to the National TBF tournament out of Lake of the Ozarks in March for a chance to actually, truthfully, become pro. So I appreciate you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of the night. There's some great stuff up here, and y'all come and see me, okay? God bless y'all.